Hello crafty friends, Amanda here with Crafting with Amanda, and I am so excited. This is, I think, my favorite day of the month, is the Mystery Envelope Challenge Reveal Day with the Makers with Heart. This time, Lori is the one that sent us out our pieces parts and set the guidelines for us to follow. And her guidelines were to use white daisy cardstock with some sort of inking technique. And then if you use all of the sequins included, which is only 6 of them, then we can add up to 2 additional papers. So I have my white daisy that's kind of free, and I know I'm going to use the sequins. So my inking technique, I was looking at this cool photo of our little guy when he was 9 for Christmas. He got these, they're supposed to be like night vision goggles, and they have flashlights or lights on the side, and it distorts your vision, and you know, they're totally cool. So I thought with the Star Wars pajamas on and the colors that are in those, they just went with the stars from the paper that Lori sent to us, and the the Harbor cardstock just kind of gave it that anchoring without being black. So I'm trying to find a direction to go in. So I'm going to do something with the papers as a vignette down here below the stars. And so instead of using textured paste through the stencil, I'm actually going to do a technique called Emboss Resist. So I have some ink that's embossing ink, and it's kind of a glue in an ink pad. And so I'm just going to swipe that and pounce that through the stencil here. And I make sure to get it covered, because I'd rather have too much ink in a spot than miss a spot. So you can see that I'm kind of pouncing and swiping and twisting, and I'm really just trying to make sure that it's fully covered. And once that's done, I will take the embossing powder and sprinkle it. After I remove the stencil, I will sprinkle it over all of that. And it might be hard to see here at first, but I'll shake that off and you can see it on the stars and on the paper. So this was a brand new multi-purpose pad, and I should have had a piece of paper and not this, because it was still rolled up at the edges and it's kind of sticky on the back, and so my embossing powder went underneath it, and I just got to spend some extra time scrubbing in my sink. But as you can see here, it all got on the stars really nicely. I do have a couple of smear areas. I figure that's where the shooting stars are, and I'm not gonna sweat it or worry about it. It's hard to see the stars transition when I'm heat embossing them, so normally I would show you all of the transition of heat embossing because it's fun to watch, but in this particular case, because I'm just doing the white on white, it wasn't that fun, or clear on white I should say. So after I clean off my table and all of this is dry, I'm going to go ahead and grab some inks, and the inks that I decided to use was Carolina, Shortbread, and Harbor, and those coordinate, I think, really well, not only with the stars and the piece of paper that she sent us, but also in the photo that I got out to do this layout. And this paper is the As You Grow paper. It's from that. So here I'm just taking a blending brush. Spoiler alert, Close to My Heart has blender brushes in their next new core catalog that comes out in 7 days. So take a look for that. In fact, if you place an order now, Close to My Heart will include the new core catalog in your order. So what I'm doing is just taking that shortbread ink, and I'm not trying to be precise about it. If I wanted a really good blend, I would probably have gotten my Distress Oxide inks out, because those are easier to blend, and they kind of stay creamy, if that makes any sense. But because this is a night sky and there's so many different shades of light that get cast, I decided that I didn't want a nice blend. I kind of wanted a rough blend. So now I'm taking the Carolina, and what I thought I'd do is, on the stencils, the stars are concentrated in a diagonal, and so keeping that diagonal with the kind of the intensity of the light, and then I'm going to work out and make the sky darker past that Milky Way of stars, I guess you would call it. So I'm just doing both sides, and I want to make sure that I didn't need to bring in a different color or a gray to change or to just tone down that Carolina blue, but it worked perfectly with the photo. And you can see here it is blending some of giving us a little bit of the green hue. And that's not so much blending because it's on the paper, but because I did the emboss resist, that ink is still sitting on top of those stars. And as I go over them with the blue brush, it's pulling off some of that shortbread and giving us that green tone. So if you didn't want any of those green tones, just make sure to brush off your stars, kind of wipe off any ink that's on top of those between each application. But for me, again, I just want this really whimsical and lots of interest sky coming through, and there can be cloud formations or dust particles or any of that that can be floating by. And I wanted my corner really dark, and then I'll do another dark spot kind of as the background for where I'm going to have a banner in the corner. In the beginning, if you recall, when I was kind of formulating my plan, and I put the photo in the bottom right, and then I put kind of the Harbor cardstock with one of the star strips in the upper left side. That's what I'm going to make a spot for here in a minute. And for brush inking, I think you have to be either patient or kind of be willing to get a nice arm work out. If you use the Distress Oxide inks, you'll get a smoother transition blend easier, but you can still achieve that with the dye inks. You just, like I said, have to be patient and really layer color on color on color. So now I'm going to cut this star piece in half so that I can kind of add it as a layer of the top and bottom, stretch it out a little bit, and I'll use the Harbor thin strip, kind of the bridge that gap, as you can see here. And in hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have cut it so close to the middle, but maybe cut it closer to the top, because I don't want, I don't know, I think if it's too symmetrical, our eyes don't like that. Our eyes like things kind of in thirds or odd numbers, so I tried to sneak that up towards the top third of the photo, if that makes any sense. And it also brings your eye into the focus of these glasses, which is what I'm going to tell the story about. I'm inking all the edges with the Harbor ink, and you can just swipe them through. I didn't show this on camera, but when you swipe it directly to the ink pad instead of using like a blender brush to apply it to the paper, sometimes you get extra ink on there, and so I'll just take a piece of paper towel, or actually shop towel, and wipe the edges so that I don't get lines accidentally on my project. Because I can't tell you how many times I've had embellishment opportunities because I've had ink lines from the edge of my matting on my project. Have you had that issue, or do you have a better technique to avoid that issue? I would love to hear about it. So here I'm just creating my layered matte situation of the photo. I really love this photo. It was fun when I found it, and it was all by itself. It was like, this is perfect. And we still use these goggles. In fact, right before we left California, our son had friends come over and spend the night. There's twin boys that they were a favorite to have come over, and these boys love to play this hide and seek in the dark. And I would sometimes play with them. A lot of times I would be in my studio, and so whoever was the seeker would come and wait with me in the studio because I had lights on in there. But the other boys would hide, and then after this agreed upon amount of time for hiding, the seeker goes out with these glasses on, and it distorts your vision, and all the lights are out in the house. You can only play this at dark, and then go try to find the other boys. So off camera, I glued some more stuff down, and I cut out, Lori had sent a slimline card with the pieces in it, and so I cut out the ICU with the slimline thin cuts, and then the U, I used every scrap of the Harbor cardstock she sent to just get those 3 letters out of it. You'll see that in the upper corner I have that wee little bit of Harbor cardstock left, and that's it. So once I put the letters on my layout, I kind of think the white was too much. It just kind of got lost. So I went ahead and decided I was going to ink up those letters. So here I'm just putting them right side down into the ink pad and directly pressing them in. And it doesn't give a really smooth effect. If you truly want a smooth effect like what you would see with cardstock, you would probably have to get some sort of water brush involved, or a marker maybe even. But for me, I didn't mind it being a little more rustic or boppled, or just not smooth and precise, kind of again adding some texture to the title. I end up moving this title, I don't even show you how many times and how many different places I move it on this layout, because I wasn't feeling it, and I was trying to figure it out. And so now I'm going to move it down here. Well, then I realized that I need to have my 3 swatches of Harbor cardstock, so the U is a little too close to the banner ends that are under the photo, in my opinion. I'm not feeling that. So then I decided, if you've watched my channel at all, when I run into a stumbling block, I like to just continue to make progress while my brain tries to sort out my next solution. So I went ahead and cut journaling strips, and I had 5 of them cut, but I went and needed 2 more, and those are just 3/8 of an inch, so 1 notch above a quarter. And now I'm putting the ICU up here. I'm going to slide the journaling down, and then I realize, all right, I need something with that dark harbor in the lower corner to bring your eye back to the journaling. So I took every last little scrap of my harbor, as you can see, and I'm drawing just the normal star that you learned how to make in kindergarten, and then I'm going to trim those out with scissors. So they're just a free-form star, and I managed to get 3 of them. So those are going to end up going down kind of in a cluster down by the journaling. And again, it just brings your eye over to that area visually. I'm not going to make you watch me glue all of those down, but as you can see, I glued down my journaling lines. I thought about inking the edges of the journaling, but I thought that would just break it up too much, and I didn't want to do that. So here we're just adding those 3 stars that I cut out. Oh, and I did add, if you look on the photo, I matted it with Carolina. So I just added a 4x6 piece of Carolina for the mat of the photo. And if I would have known that I was going to do that first, I could have cut the word C out of that. But in hindsight, I'm really happy having that extra texture in the title. So here are the last 2 embellishments that I need to use to allow me to qualify to use that extra piece of Carolina cardstock. Thank you, Lori. And of course, it's a starry sky, so I'm going to grab my gold shimmer brush, just cover my photo here, and then with my score tool from my Close to My Heart scoreboard that we had years ago, I'm just tapping on that to do smaller dots of the gold. And you can't really see them here on the camera, but in the still shots, they show up a lot better, and they just add a nice glint. Be sure to check out everybody else's what they did with the mystery envelope pieces parts. There'll be a link in my description under the video, and share some love and joy. Blessings.